In order to populate your database and give you a working system before you start doing quotations on Dolphin, we require certain information from you. Now, the starting point for that when it comes to machinery, I'll click on the quoting or the estimating module to give you a run through on that. But basically, in order to set a machine up, we need a list of all the machinery you have in both your litho, pre-press, and finishing departments. I'll just expand this. So under the litho section, if I click on press, and let's just maybe add something in here just so that we can get down to the press department. So under press, basically you can see this is where we're going to load all your machinery on the printing side of things. So we need the list of names of your machines. Now, each machine has specific capabilities. In the case of this Komori or the GTO 46, you can see if I scroll across, first thing we require is an hourly rate for that machine. What does that machine cost to run per hour? We require that from you. Next to that, stations. In other words, how many colors can this GTO run? In this case, it's a single color machine, so the stations is 1. Okay. If it's a 4-color machine or a 5-color machine, as you can see over here, the stations is 5, and vice versa. If it is a 6-color machine, the stations would be 6. Then we need to know what you charge for a make ready or a setup per station. So in a single color machine, if you are going to take 18 minutes or 20 minutes to set up that machine to complete the make ready on a single color machine, then the time factor over here, you can give it to us either in time and say it's 20 minutes or 0.3, which is basically 18 minutes. Then we need to know, well, in most cases, we wouldn't need to know if it's sheet fed or continuous. Normally, we do know by the machine you supply. But sheet or continuous would be, is it a sheet fed machine or is it running off from reels? Okay. Then we need to know the minimum depth, the minimum width capabilities of that machine. That's paper size, the maximum paper depth, and the maximum paper width. Okay. Because Dolphin uses that when you are busy with quotations to see if you're able to produce the required size on that machine. Then in most cases, we would require the grip of that machine as well, be it 10 mils, 12 mils, whatever the case may be. We also need to know, in the case of your plate making, how much copies you're able to print off from that plate before it goes blind. Okay, you can supply us with that information. We need to know the speed of that machine. So you can say, please quote this machine regardless of what job at 5,000 an hour, and we can populate it accordingly. Then we need to know how much overs you allow for per plate. In other words, if you're running a 2-color job and you're allowing 100 overs per plate, it's going to automatically pull through 200 overs. That's working size sheets. Okay. Then we're going to need to know if we need to make an allowance for drying time or not. Okay. We need to know what your plate change time is. So every time a plate goes blind and you need to put a new plate on the machine, or you're doing a color change or something like that, we need to know how long it takes for that machine minder to load a plate onto the machine. Then more or less lastly, we need to basically know if that machine numbers and perfs, okay, what time allowance do you allow for setting up the numbering boxes or barrels, and how long do you take to set up the perf, be it litho perf, which is sticking on a cylinder, or perfing wheels. We need to know how much time is spent setting that up. You can see this perfecting allowance for in the system as well. All we need to know is if your machine is a perfecter, how much can it print on the front and how much can it print on the back. In other words, if it's a 5 color, is it a 3/2 or whatever the case may be, you can just supply us that, or you can just tell us that the machine is a perfecter. Then we can allow for perfecting as well. So that's what is required on the litho side of things. Now, with a digital printer, as you can see in the case of the Xerox V80, we need to know basically what your click charges are. Okay, so if you look on the right here, if I go to digital, you can see B is for black one side, B is for black both sides, C is for color one side, C is for color both sides, B is color one side, black reverse. In your case, the click charges we require would be for SRA4, black one side, color one side, and that's about it. The click charge for SRA3, which in most cases is double SRA4. And if you've got the banner attachment, what would the click be for the banner attachment as well? Okay. And then we can populate this in the system for you. And every time you do a digital quote, it will look at the click charge table to determine the cost of running that. Okay. So that's basically what is required under the press. If I go, you can see there's a guillotine. We just need to know what the cost per hour is of the guillotine. If I head across to additional and I look at finishing, this is where you're going to see stuff like your folding machines, your saddle stitches, all that necessary information is populated here. Likewise, with the litho, we're going to need the cost per hour of that machine, but you can also see in finishing, you're able to populate it at a cost per thousand, a cost per each, or a cost per square meter as well, depending on the finishing type. Normally, if it's a machine involved, it needs to be a cost per hour and a speed factor. Okay, so we need to know what you cost that machine out per hour and how fast that machine runs. So that's going to be the average speed you want to quote that machine at. Okay, so that's what's required on the finishing side. If it's hand labor, we need to know what you charge per hour for hand labor. And if that hand labor is collating, we need to know the speed, how fast they can collate. Is it 2,000 sheets per hour, whatever the case may be. And then we can populate that accordingly for you. On the side of deliveries, we need to know if we're allowing for shrink wrapping. You can see the factors that determine the costing in the shrink wrapping. We need to know either cost per hour for shrink wrapping or time per pack, quantity per pack you can populate depending on the job you're doing. So that's not really important. But the time per pack and the material cost and the actual hourly rate that you charge for shrink wrapping, that's the labor factor. Okay, that's what we require over there. If it's boxes, we just need to know the size box that we need to populate and what the cost is per box. Okay, so that's all that's required basically for the packing or the dispatch area. When it comes to signage, when we look at machines like large format printers, so I'll just head to the printing and I'll highlight that Roland. With large format, we normally put in a unit of measure is normally per square meter. So you need to tell us what you charge per square meter. That is your large format or any of your signage machinery would basically consist of the hourly rate or the cost per square meter would factor in the ink, recovery of the consumables, the labor factor, and the ROI, the return on investment, basically what your machine costs and over what period you want to recover that cost. You would do that calculation and tell us you want to cost that machine out at 50 Rand a square meter, 100 Rand a square meter. If you're happy that whatever that rate is covers all of what I've just mentioned now, then you can send that through to us and we'll populate it accordingly. When it comes to stuff like hand finishing, it works exactly the same as the litho. Whether you are doing a vehicle wrap, you're doing weeding of vinyl or seaming or whatever the case may be, or maybe attaching LEDs to a sign box or whatever the case may be, we need to know how long it takes and what that rate is per hour for the labor. Okay? The actual materials, like the LEDs and stuff like that, we load under the material section, which is a complete different story, and we'll send you a spreadsheet for all of that information. So depending on what type of printing you doing, be it large format, signage, litho, label, continuous, whatever the case may be, whatever makes up your final pricing, be it a machine or a material factor, we need all the information necessary for that machine to calculate correctly within the estimating system. So if you're able to provide us accurately with that information on a spreadsheet, we're able to populate and test your system, and then we can do an installation and you can do your training and start using Dolphin for your quotations. Thank you.